Welcome to our wonderful event. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Senatorova, and tonight I'm going to be the MC, le compère, conférencier of this bilingual poetry reading called poetry, roetri, as some our friends call it. And this bilingual event will celebrate recent work by poet-translators Inna Krasnoper, Tatiana Krasilnikova, and Venya Gushchin. So tonight you're gonna hear and see the performance of poetry in Russian, in English, you're gonna hear the translations, and you're gonna also witness transmedial and multimedial poetry. And it is my pleasure to invite Tatiana Krasilnikova and to introduce her. Tatiana is a poet and a scholar born in Nizhny Novgorod. Her Russian language poetry has appeared in DOXA, F-pismo, ROR, Flagi, Artikulyatsiya, Sad Girls Times, Galo, post-nonfiction, and elsewhere. Her debut poetry collection is forthcoming from Poryadok Slov in 2025, mark your calendars. And she is currently a PhD candidate at Columbia University, where she studies feminist experimental poetry. Her academic work includes co-authoring a book on the poetic language of early Pasternak, published in 2021. And beyond the academia, she also cares for Limoncella, a lemon tree, in an apartment with north-facing windows. Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the Harriman Institute for organizing this event. I'm going to read one poetry cycle and some poems from my long poema. Sound is really fitting this event. So you already see this poem. This is a visual poetry cycle that you wrote this summer. It's called Варианты разложения, and I'm going to read it in Russian without translations, but there will be translations for the second part. Варианты разложения 1. Гниение, непротивление материала. Прошлое разлагается на слова, отбрасывая непереваренное в створки рек. Каждый год я сажала в саду poems de terre, забывая полить. Больше не буду сажать, пускай плывут по земле. Пограничники сеют себе границы. Дорожная пыль переходит в пыльцу. Такие повсюду законы. Знать их не значит освободиться совсем. Каждый год происходит одно. Нарастает кольцом на кольцо, разжимая боязнь. Нагноение – бывшее, перелитое в будущее. Память – лоб, касающийся песка. So for the second poem, I would like you to all do the job. And this is a challenging poem to read, and I know it's also not very, you can't see it really well, but let's try. So I want the audience to start reading from different places and to read whatever you see. And I would like to record it just for my own memory. And I will show you when to stop. You all know how to read in Cyrillic, right? Or most of you. Let's try.
Не знаю. Рта, урки, еки, корня этого, поперек, рту, язы, правила языка, у реки, поперек, сори,
Thank you. Спасибо. And the third poem from this cycle, which I will do my job. So. Это или ветер потерян в дереве, или голова потеряна в ветре, или опознанный объект, летающий, опознан неверно. Или это незаконное преследование в переулках ума, подпрыгивая по минному полю слизней, слизывающих последние урывки прошлого с переслащенных плиток. Или это ткань в окне, или отверстие в белевом омуте, взбелененном, отпавшем за ненадобностью непрерывности. Или это перебросок оттуда сюда, из точки кипячения реки на липкой плите в точку отчуждения от жара времени. Это или то, или это не то и не то. Под каким созвездием встать, чтобы ощутить точнее состояние памяти, носа, и рта, и ушей, и глаз, и кожи, состоявшихся врозь по закону необнуленному. Где смола, испаряющаяся в росу, перепиливает взъерошенной газонокосилкой подушечки пальцев, обожженный о кипяток реки, или где обожженный язык о реку вскипевшую воспроизводит расписание электричек, за которым распределено осознание времени, всегда выраженного в расчете широты выходки на длину ладони. Где желудок поезда переваривает сотни корзин, переваривших тысячи чешуек истории, отброшенных к вечеру выходного дня, переходящего в отпуск. Где, когда я протискиваюсь в выход очередного года, ветер подхватывает меня и заветривает меня, и заверяет, расписываясь на лице труженицы памяти, меня, веткой, отломанной от головы, почвы, оторванной от неопознанной другими земли, отскакивающей от чужих поверхностей, мячиком полусдутым в моей 7-летней руке, не отпущенной маминой отпускной рукой, и труженица сточившейся ностальгии, я, и труженица обесточенной ностальгии, я, себя отпускаю. And now I would like to invite Venya. So I wrote this poema, this long poem that's called Heracleocene or Bolshevikocene. So some of you know that I love this plant, Sosnovsky's hogweed, and I wrote this poem about both Sosnovsky's hogweed but also my childhood and some other things. And then I started translating it. So I will read 4 small fragments from the beginning and the last poem, which is like the epilogue. And if you're interested, you can scan the QR code and read the whole poem. It's published in actually a new Halo Galo media, which is dedicated to eco poetry in Russian language. Уроки земли. Из-под палки, из-под полы, из-под пола, из-под гробницы авторитарных режимов, тоталитарных режимов, из-под грибницы акторно-сетевой теории, из-под артерии нефти, it's not a pipe, из-под трупного яда органических языков, из-под мусора, мусоров. Но и просто горстка земли на участке земли, на земле отучивает от перевода речи.
Lessons from the earth, under the lash, under the table, from under the floorboards, from under the tomb of authoritarian regimes, of totalitarian regimes, from under the mycelium of actor network theory, from under oil arteries, it's not a pipe, from under the putrid poison of organic languages, from under garbages, but also just a handful of earth on a plot of land on earth, unteaches the translation of speech.
Дети смотрят на облако в телескоп. У телескопа фурано-кумарины. Не играйте, дети, с фурано-кумаринами. Не проглатывайте увеличительные устройства. Время мутировало в ожог. Дети играют с вмятиной во рту, с пожаром на языке.
Children, look at cloud through telescope. Telescope coded in Faranica marins. Children, don't play with Faranica marins. Don't swallow magnifying equipment, time mutated into a burn. Children, play with a bruise in the mouth, with a fire on the tongue.
Я обернула взгляд вокруг стебля и увидела красный воздух, В красном воздухе развернулась память. На вкус, как горькое молоко, на ощупь горение. Поле охвачено дымом и смутой. Я продолжаю тянуть себя по нему. Я — это какая точка пространства?
I turned my gaze around the stalk and saw the red air. Memory unfolded on the red air, bitter milk to the taste, burning to the touch. The field is overtaken with smoke and turmoil. I continue to stretch myself towards I. What point in space is that?
Мы продолжаем идти, продолжаемся. По правую руку война горячая, по левую тоже горячая, но медленная война. Колонии выцветших шапок, корни, вгрызшиеся в государство. Славься, славься, о большевикоцен. Животные, наклоняйтесь пониже, кланяйтесь влагалищу постистории.
We keep walking, keep on, keeping on. To the right, a war all too hot. To the left, also hot, but a much slower war. Colonies of discolored hats, roots sinking teeth into states. Glory, glory to you, O hogweed scene. Animals bow lower, bow down to the vulva of post-history.
So today is my mother's birthday, and the last poem is related to motherhood and my own mother. Сегодня день рождения моей мамы. Мама, привет! Поздравляю тебя, я тебя очень люблю, очень по тебе скучаю. Я тебе посвящаю это стихотворение. So I dedicate now this the last poem from this poema to my mother. The coordinates, the geographic coordinates, you can see this picture from Google Earth. It's where I grew up. I was growing up in this dacha place in Nizhgorodskaya oblast when I was a child. And at some point the house there was a fire, and this house doesn't exist anymore. So this is a very important place and point in space for me. Координаты, место эпилога и оптимистической нотки для увязшей во ртах симфонии апокалипсиса. Google Земля, 2019, лиственница. Google Земля, 2020, зола. Почва, выявшая в себе дыру. Коричневая река. Учебник русского языка, 2 класс, 2004. Из стебля борщевика изготовить дудочку, после игры съесть. Да мы бы поджарили себе рты, или мы уже себе их поджарили, или мы всегда уже их поджарили, всегда уже обожгли язык. Мы — это кто? Спутниковый снимок чужого затылка. Это не я, это не мы. Мы уже вымыли наш язык, вымыли ямы под языками, выучили. Из золы ничего не рождается. Лиственница сравнялась с Google Землей. Google Земля сравняла счет с памятью. Раньше я была рыбой, плавала в этой реке. Это было давно, до учебников, до параграфов про бульон. Раньше я ела рыбный бульон. Это было давно, но после учебников, после параграфов про бульон. После побега борщевика из лабораторий агробиологического провала, после изобретения спутников, после первичного супа в животе моей мамы, после перепосадки лиственницы на участок в 6 соток советской щедрости, после всего, что я не знала об этой земле, своими глазами. Белые колонии зонтиков, перетянутая проводами река, отсчитывает свой пульс. Животное, опознанное мной как женщина, чистит кастрюлю песком, снимает белье на счет 3. На счет 4 выплывет рыбка вверх животом. Она поднимает голову и смотрит своими глазами в мои глаза. говорит своими словами в мой рот. В моем животе животное. В животном песок. На песке таз. В тазу река. В реке земля. На земле я. Я не знаю, кто я. Но и ты не знаешь, кто я. Сколько ни снимай кору за корой, будет еще кора и еще песок, еще камень, еще живот, еще одного животного. Это будет до всего, и это было после всего. Это есть всегда, там, где мы и я бесконечно меняют места. Но есть и сейчас. Это твое сейчас. В нем ты смотришь за мной и думаешь, что видишь и слышишь меня. Ты ничего не видишь и ничего не слышишь. У меня нет твоего учебника и твоих отпечатков земли. Наша связь состоит из прорезей и воронок. Я ничего не вижу и ничего не слышу. Я еще не знаю твоего языка.
Instead of an epilogue and of an optimistic note for the symphony of apocalypse bogged down in our mouths. Google Earth 2019, large tree. Google Earth 2020, ashes. Soil that has chewed a hole in itself. Brown river. Russian language textbook, 2nd grade, 2004. Make a little pipe out of the hogweed stalk, eat after playing with it. We would have fried our mouths off, or have already fried them, or we have always already fried them, always already burnt our tongue. Who is the we here? Satellite image of the back of another's head. That's not me. That's not us. We've already washed our tongue, washed the hollows beneath our tongues, learned it by heart. Nothing is born from ashes. The large tree has been leveled to the ground of Google Earth. Google Earth has settled its scores with memory. I used to be a fish, used to swim in this river. This was long ago, before the textbooks, before the sections on broth. I used to eat fish broth. That was long ago. But after the textbooks, after the sections on broth, after the hogweeds escaped from the laboratory of agrobiologic failure, after the invention of satellites, after the primordial soup in my mom's belly, after the replanting of the large tree on the plot, 6 heirs of Soviet generosity, after everything I knew about this ground through my own eyes. White colonies of umbrellas, the river crisscrossed by telephone wires, counts to take its pulse. An animal I recognize as a woman cleans her pot with sand, removes the laundry on the count of 3. On the count of 4, a fish surfaces, belly up. It raises its head and looks into my eyes with its eyes, speaks its words into my mouth. In my belly there's an animal. In the animal there's sand. In the sand a basin. In the basin a river. In the river the earth. On earth me. I don't know who I am, but neither do you. No matter how you take the rind off the rind, there will always be more rind, more sand, more stone, another belly of yet another animal. This will be before everything, and this was after everything. This is forever, there where we and I change places endlessly. But there is also a now. This is your now. In it, you look behind me and think that you can see and hear me. You can't see anything, can't hear anything. I don't have a copy of your textbook or your footmarks. Our connection consists of grooves and eddies. I don't see anything, don't hear anything. I still don't know your language.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Venya. And Venya, you can come back because it's time to introduce you. So, Venya Gushchin is a poet, literary translator, as you may guess, and PhD candidate at Columbia University, defending a dissertation on the late styles of Russian modernist poets. His translations of Vladimir Mayakovsky and Elizaveta have received the Columbia University Slavic Department Pushkin Prize. Locate Swallow, selected poems by Olga Bergod, translated by Gushchin, appeared from Smokestack Books in 2022. Most recently, his translations of Yevsei Tsetlin's rereading Silence was published by Bagri and Company. His writing has appeared, or is forthcoming, in the Rumpus, Action, Spectacle, Midway Journal, No Deer, and elsewhere.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I guess the one thing to update is that I've defended a dissertation. But thank you for that introduction, Lisa. And so thank you everyone for coming. Most people know me as a literary translator, so literary translation is what I will begin with. The first poem that I will read is by Vladimir Mayakovsky. I will read it in the original Russian. I thought that it was a good time to read this poem because it is one of Mayakovsky's translingual poems, and this is, a theme that we are talking about, language exchange. The original context of the poem is, it's Mayakovsky making fun of the way that recent emigres to the United States speak, their mother tongue with a lot of Englishisms. I now see that parts of it might be a little anti-Semitic, a little Belarusian phobic, but at the same time, oftentimes what we can now recuperate as translingual poetry occurs from this sort of like more mocking position. And so I'll read the original, and I'll stand for the original because, it's Mayakovsky. And the photo is, thank you for Anna Yemelyanova for taking the photograph. This was me shaving my head very early in 2020 when we were all stuck inside, and this was the only way I could get a haircut. So decided to have some fun with it. And this is, via Zoom. Американские русские. Петров капланом за пуговицу пойман. Штаны заплатаны, как балканская карта. Я вам, сэр, назначаю appointment. Вы знаете, кажется, мой апартмент. Тудой пройдете 4 блока, потом сюдой дадите крен. И если стриткара набита около, можете взять подземный трен. Возьмите с менянием пересядки тикет и прийти спокойно, как будто в телеге. Слезьте на корнере, у дрогзликет. А мне уж и пинту принес бутлегер. Приходите ровно в 7 o'clock, поговорим про новости в городе и проведем по-московски вечерок. Одни свои, жена да бордер. А с джобом завозитесь в течение дня или вздумайте вовсе, тогда обязательно отзвоните меня. Я буду в офисе. Goodbye. Разнеслось окрест и кануло ветру в свист. Мистер Петров пошел на вест, а мистер Каплан на ист. Здесь, извольте видеть, job, а дома цуп да цус. С насыпи язык летит на полном пуске. Скоро только очень образованный француз будет кое-что соображать по-русски. Горланит по этой Америке самой стоязыкий народ оголтец. Уж если Одесса, Одесса мама, то Нью-Йорк, Одесса отец. And now I want to invite back up to the stage Tatiana Krasilnikova. I would read my translation, but my accent in English is a little different than what is intended for the poem, so I think I should let Tanya do it.
I will still be sitting, but American Russians. Kaplan caught Petrov by the button. His pants patched as a map of the Balkans. Sir, I schedule you an appointment. I think you saw my apartment. First you go 4 blocks, then here you make a hook. You take the underground train. If streetcar is full, take a ticket. Make sure to transfer and you ride calmly like in wagon. Get off on corner at the Drogs Liket. I'll have a pint from bootlegger. At 7 o'clock's our meeting. Let's talk about New Yorker news and have a Moscow evening. We are friends here, my wife and border. And if you're stuck at job at all, or if you change your mind, then definitely give me a call. I'll be in office. Goodbye. Around the neighborhood pressed into the whistling winds release. Mr. Petrov went west. Mr. Kaplan went east. Here, if you will, they have jobs at home, we are stuck with acronyms. Witness here our language corruption, and soon the well-read Frenchie is the only who understands a little Russian. In this here America, the rabid crowd bawls its 100 tongues silly. Well, if Odessa is the mother town, then New York's the father city.
Thank you, Tanya. The next translation I will read is from a more recent translation project. This is by the contemporary Kalmyk poet Darji Jarjirev. He is the laureate of the Arkady Dragomoshenko Prize from 2021, one of the most exciting voices to come out of the Russophone poetry scene. And just to announce, in 2027, we will be publishing my translation of Darji's debut collection will be coming out with World Poetry Books. Thank you to Matvey and Kirevich for getting this together. But I think I'll just give you guys a little bit of a sample. Darji's poetry is known for being very complex, dense, but my advice truly is to just read it out loud. I think it becomes a lot clearer once you read it out loud. Flatness unfurls as the axis of displacement. Symmetry, much like speed, attracts, appears as a mnemonic model for death as well, the kinetics of repetition conditioned by the recombinations of opposition, communication manifests. The imitativeness of embodiment, the processual bodies are enactable on the contrary, expansiveness happenings. The body is grounded through the form of reflection. I see how my blisters exude pericarpic bunches, functionality, the capacity for orientation. Space looks for its center within us. In absence, givenness acquires qualities of sensoriality, the latter's irreducibility to material tissue, the proportion of position reduced to expectation, thereby recreates possible access, testifying to the process of condition, expressing itself in indeterminacy. And the decomponent of placement at the far extreme of distance revolves into noise, an accidental quality of exclusion, prehending manifested anticipation, merely as a form of closeness. The ornament is stable via the extraction algorithm, brittle though through, lies down like the furs of slaughtered cattle. Dreams reside on the shores, and before touching the water, make sure the silence is nearly unriddled in perfect exhalation, but only nearly. After all, something has to remain. And this concludes the translation portion of my performance. Before I continue, I just wanted to thank Ron Meyer, who is currently with us here. Ron has been like a massive source of support and inspiration. When I came to Columbia 11 years ago, Ron showed me that literary translation was a viable career option, and I just wanted to thank him for all the support that he has shown me throughout these years. And now, some stuff I wrote. The subject subjects, and the object objects. The subject subjects the object. The object objects to the subject. The subject objects to the object and to the subject. Yet the object objects to objection. The subject subjects the object to objection, and subjects the subject to subjection. yet the object objects. The object subjects only subjectively. Subjectively, the object subjects the subject. Subjectively, the object subjects the subject to subjection. Yet objectively, the subject subjects the object to objection, and the object objects. The object objects to objection objectively. Having exhausted every available option, we went for a walk in St. Nicholas. The air had a chill without curling into wind. You tenderly pulled my left hand. We spotted 3 tawny cardinals on our circular path, a rarity, especially this time of year. It's important to start off the reading with something like a tongue twister in order to get the mouth going. This next poem is inspired by a line from Ovid, from his Metamorphoses, Silvasque tenet delphinus, which is a description of the flood scene. The forests are taken over by dolphins. An orchard of my sentences I sowed for you, admitted spring in August, budding long after you had gone, and coming so ungainly that I dropped my pen, a sudden twitch, I had lost my right. You laughed your palm to chin, my chin to palm. When night, there was nothing left to whisper on the ear, and now the poem can begin to flood. Syntagmas, maples, turning branches, and palm hemp indistinguishable from you, dolphin, you. Slipping trunks o'er my fingers, and sheets, and blot, and come undone as we have beaches, briefly sober enough. Let's start the world crossing over. A crush is a religious sort of feeling. The ones afar approached and only reached in arches, contemplation, smoke. Indeed, as reached, the one is promptly dragged into being, both for and in. I sit with my window, feeling objective, like the poem is not invented, but comes discovered, its old form slowly summing to zero in late August. What started as a thrifting of scholarly robes has pulled the canopy from our dirty mirror. I am not in love. Keeping time across measure lines, I am all duty, leaving for others the chance to unite theory with praxis, the icon with lips. Little Hours. So named after the section of Latin Mass, but also the 2017 film starring Aubrey Plaza and Dave Franco. Sky off the sill of opportunity we stole had the flat awakeness of too much black tea. Unseen at lauds and silent flush against the wall, we followed our ivy, free to roughly crawl, to clasp ourselves unfree, to become, as whispered syntax, tangled up like pilgrims edging towards, lest they profane the coming blush of dawn. How can I name you in the passage? When all distinctions fall, we, alternating prayer in effect, and alternating son and babe, we kept our masks at hand in case our brothers called. This is a relatively new poem. I've never performed it, but let's see how it goes. In the lobby, someone left a molded dollar sealed in a plastic bag affixed to the fake plant supplied by landlord. Molded dollar was written on the mag. Molded dollar would not have been my chosen affix. A metallic pin did the affixing. This is a literature of fact, lacking affection, affectation, embellishment. Believe me, black spots confirmed the presence of mold. The spots extended across the dollar surface. Nick, in all capital letters, was extended across the surface. I need to look it up, for if not mistaken, writing automatically voids the value of any bill. I would have called it moldy dollar, perhaps. The mold had not completed its extension across the dollar surface. The dollar, crucially, was folded, obscuring the other side of its equally voided surface area. What this someone wanted is embellishment, affectation, affection, and yet a molded voided dollar profanes and pleases. Thank you. That was part of the poem. But we are coming to a section of this evening. This is the Ilo Eris section of the evening. Darya Khidrova teaches us that a poem must find its speaker and can be adapted to various new situations, depending on the pragmatic context of the verse. But in this case, the speaker is me, and so the implied addressee of the text remains the same. A century since you responded, I think, the body woke me up at 5, and time no longer grows up like a tree, but in all directions. I can see a gull drop foot by foot, like it was copy-pasted down the pillar canvas, falling right on my eyes. Collision is delight embodied. Rerun bodies form a rhyme already used to long silences. Perhaps this is the winter I get too into Lacan, a little too into the phantom wind outside your voice's medium. My phone sticks to its habit, phantom buzzing in direct proportion to my own desire. Despite the words, I am still a boy at school. The seagull lives, the body plays it cool or tries, a stubborn child in denial. I'll read this one. I tried to comfort you with misremembered, sparkling undergraduate and surface Freud. Misremembered because it's been nearly a decade since the failing afternoon I read Mourning and Melancholia, or rather skimmed the PDF 20 minutes before class, The White Sky, before myself was even a concept seedling expected to bloom across the wavering garden path sentence, convinced by stories of a golden childhood I didn't need therapy. Back then, I let myself admire the window at evening, was less of a gardener, even though still the same shuddering flower you love today. Even Pushkin admits his eyes do not sink into the page on lethargic winter evenings. Reconfirms the glittering of the lightly and freshly fallen snow it is cliche to liken with his verses. Seasonally, Octavia Butler and Ovid come to the same ground, come to see change as the only constant. The kind of paradox we keep as a fireplace, as we misread and misremember at each other. This is a poem that was recently published in the Ballast Journal. Since our next speaker is coming from Berlin, Schiller Park is a park in the neighborhood of Wedding, or near the neighborhood of Wedding in Berlin. And one of my favorite parts about Schiller Park is that there is a much larger park right next to it called Goethe Park. May in Schiller Park, I falter, I father, how do I author, how do I after, how do I alter, after laughter, after all, falls on ears like leaves, dotted line of sunlight. The dramatic rushes to the stage, applause announcing its return. The tragicomic rushes to the page, imprinting from the generation, everything will be forever. Schiller Park in May has always evidenced these ruins satisfied with ruin, with vestiges, with evidence. We unraveled after the semester spooled us to a dot. We dug, no, the admin dug 3 graves, one for each epoch. Memory remaining caught in the lampposts without engagement. Each postponing the inevitable sunlit clarity, the hollow dot, the hollow spool, revealing misery as handed down the Soviet high-rise, the brutal ruins, the convex joy of imprinted recognition. I contend my mechanisms of repression would make the admin blush. You sigh, that's nothing to be proud of. Sirens. Acquire bike chains unthinkable to the police and sold in the official bookstore. The collision are backsliding sensibilities into the hull. Attic speeches on your favorite boy fucking. Your favorite boy is perched, is bound to your midday handlebars as pavements revert to cobblestones, revert to the salt left after universal tears. The chains will gnaw my wrists as you voyage, skin exuding the salt of yearning for even greater binding as the end of history in hindsight appears unimaginative as dusk instead of the nightmare that follows. It follows, it is bound to follow. The eternal city will rearrange the eye and ear to its unfastening habits and buckles. Pouring over the pavement like pages, the bourgeois subject confronts the rotting seaweed of capital, crusted with seething salt. Song engenders song. Our song is the neck rewinding to catch your eye. Recursion of glances. I watch, you watching me, watching you trees appear. I am your symptom, bound to contort the tongue to products memorized from dawn. A few more poems before my time is up. Having already, having already, having already had, having had already arrived, having already arrived at the station, white smoke, handkerchiefs, tears amid prolonged scarves and kisses. The war is over, never happened, already having arrived at the station. We can call after Sedgwick, reparative reading, the primordial embrace, non-differentiation, and a timid utopia by the campfire yellow leaf as forests burn. Having already arrived, the train designed for the station. Let us again take up again, a little too literary, but get on with it. Take up the hook, take up again the crochet hook of endless critique. And one final poem. Thank you so much for everyone for coming. It's such a pleasure to be sharing the stage with such wonderful, talented poets. Thank you to Tanya, and I'm really looking forward to Ina's performance as well. And this is my final poem for you guys today. Deny the analogy. The world is not one. The sun is not a silver apple bobbing. Oh, yeah, there you go. Along the waves in your tea. Why do you reach for a book when faced with a rock? Nothing rhymes. Autumn left no glasses on your nose. Even your love for fragments is 2 centuries too late. The same 2 flies have circled before your room was cut. All we can assert is asymmetrical identity. You take my clothes off the way you take my clothes off, the way you take them off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venya. Now it's the turn of Inna Krasnoper, who is a Berlin-based poet, artist, and literary translator. She graduated from the Что делать Collective School of Engaged Art in St. Petersburg and holds a BA in Dance Context Choreography from University of the Arts in Berlin. Her Russophone poetry collections include Nitki торчат, Loose Threads, published by the Вознесенский Center in 2021, and Дорогой человек, Dear Person, published by NLO in 2024. Her first English language poetry collection, Distance, was published by Velis Books in 2025.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for hosting us. So we've chosen some of the most mixed poems for today. Поэт роет яму, ямы, я, вы, явно роет. Первый блинчик получается ровный. Нараспашку вру башку. На вердаде надо верить. Навозить не вада, ни воду, ни землю. Наземный озими ост. Права. Tell me Y, tell me X, tell me Z, tell me здесь. Tell X from Y. Tell me from your heart. Tell it to my, oh my. Tell my sister word for word. Tell me squat. Nada, nada, yellow. Your bedtime starts soon. Tell me about a bed. Обедать. Tell my dad. Dad. Цвет плюс подросточный возраст. Tell me about growth. Tell on oath. Tell me oatmeal. Did you out-oat me? Tell me. Mia. Me. Mia. Mia. Me. Mourir. Say to stop. Say to go. Goad me. Say to turn gray. Today. To tell my grayish, hairish. Mish. Tell me. Mich. Tell me to use три буквы. Tell me to unuse words. Tell world from word. Reward me with some telling. Retell up to welling. Tell me repercussion. Cushion. The lie. Бежевый, но великоватый. Бежевый и великий. Бежевый и беж. Бежевый и нежный. Бежевый и неж. Бежевый и найге. Бежевый и плащ. Бежевый и немой. Бежевый говорящий. Плащ это бежевый. Это как черное, это как новый плащ, бежеватый. Это как не борода из ваты, это как извозчик в грязи. Это как повозить себя по полу. It is just like today. It is just like rain. It is бежевый зонт. Зонт it is не бежевый, это как сбежавший зонт. Это как нота зря. Это как зря. Зародясь, это как я. Не сказать мы. Не сказать не за себя. Это как зачем мы рождались бежевым мокрым плащом, заращом, зарощей, зараж. Отдали, отдались в плаще без рук, башки. Упс. Ceremony, 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 surrender, ceremony, ceremony, mandatory ceremony, predatory, min, sine, yiratam. Там ceremony, здесь some money, a sum. Summon someone to a ceremony, summon them to a sermon. Is it my sermon or yours? Surrendering, not being able to dare. Дарю тебе сермон. It is mon. It has to become, becoming über die Gebirge, Montagne. This is my tongue. Take it foremost for my sermon. Это мой evening. Мой Abend, мой обед, I bet, нет, up, ins bed. Это моя орбита, орбит, без сахара. Это моя сухая земля, supposedly suit. Ля-ля. How long is the letter I? How long is the letter I? How long is the sound shoe? How deep is the sound? How deep is the sea? Have you seen the letter I? Did it show up? Did it show down? How long is the down time of a downing letter I? Of a drowning letter, of a drawn letter, of a gesture of letter to the left, of a left letter to stay unattended, unended, in a long sounding ungestured letter, in a let be letter, in a let it liter, in a letter trying to tell, let in pursuing, the latter in catching, the letter at its end, having consulted with the tailor. Im voraus, impact, implication. I am implied in this implication. In this намерение, намера, пресечение, сечь, приближение, прибавление, to come, to coming, to welcoming, too much of a well one can hear in a well. Its borders are well coming the sound. Sound bounces back, back, lash, back, stage, back, stagnieren, to stash in a stock, squish oneself in a stock, stack onto. Accumulate, акупунктур, аккумулятор, зарядка, за рядом, за Helans. A longer poem. I've started to translate it, but it needs more time. And a collaborator. Белый, 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 белый свет. Белый, 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 белый мир. Белый, 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 белый выпуск. Белый, 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 белый спуск. Белый, былой, дивный, чудный мир. Спорный, спудный, нудный, с правдой, кривдой, мирный, белый мир. Смирно, мир, смертно, мир. Смертно, смиры, смертно-мерный мир. Где-то мир, где-то дыры, где-то смертно, где-то март. Где он? Март с мерой, март с миром по миру. Пошел, шли на март, шли марать, шли на морд, морда, мата, мата, мир, где он, мир, где он, мир, стрёмно, мерный, стрема, та, пряма, та, мера, та, мира, то, мира, ток, мир, не то, не давай, не дает. Белый, белый, белый отклик, белый, белый, белый отзыв. Звать как мир, звать как нас, как на нос, нацепить. Цепкий цедит белый мир. Обернись, оглянись, поклонись, по колено мира, вой на во, новый мир. Мир с тобой, за тобой, затаив. Белый, белый мир рычит, промычит, помаячит моя той. Моя мир, той ли мир, той ли стебель. Беломира, бела, вой, бега, вой, по берлоге скачет мир. Мы с тобой, зарычав, прокричав, чавка миром. Час не той, чай помой, ты отмой, бело миром. Покрути, подрасти, под калитку беловат, маловат, бело мир, без с тобой, без тени, не тяни, бело мир, не вытягивай собою, отмотав, сотри, от зарытый, беломир, подмети, ты отмой, ты не мой, он не наш, он не сажа, белый мир, он не наша же, она той, она этой, ай на пару, белый мир, мир устал, мир сопел, мира точит, мира мир, мера та, мера той, мер они, на безмерный, обрани, обрати, обкрути, спусти, не спускай, отпускай, отпусти. Белый, белый. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inna. Thank you, Venya. Thank you, Tanya. We have several minutes for questions, so I would like to open the floor for a discussion. If you would like to ask our poets about...
Do we need more light?
Yeah, maybe you let's turn it up. Yeah, I mean, few minutes, few questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a question for Venya. Venya, I have a question. I noticed that your poetry, which is very cadentical, very well, put together, rhythmical, is very different from what you've chosen to translate from, I forget the name to
Darji, yeah. Darji Georgiev, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Mhm.
Which is basically Arkady Dragomoshenko school in a way.
Mhm.
You know, I've known him.
Mhm.
It's very, very different from what you do. I'm just wondering why you've chosen
Mhm.
to work with him,
Mhm.
which is kind of almost like a betrayal in a way, in a good sense of what you do. Is it a special interest?
It is a special interest. So I don't know. I met Darji. I've actually never met him in person. We were introduced by Alexei Musalov. He was putting together a festival of non-ethnic Russian poets from the Russian Federation, and I had known about Darji before, and I agree that Darji himself would not say that he necessarily writes in the Dragomoshenko Yeremin school, but like a lot of people have made that connection, and that is part of what drew me to him, and that is a kind of poetry that I'm interested in, and I think that I've learned a lot from working with him and collaborating with him on these translations, because I think it's very important as a poet and as a translator to translate widely in order to develop your own style, and yeah, so I think it's very useful to work on people that you might have a very different poetics than you do. But thank you for that question.
And if I might make a suggestion, you might be very interested in looking into translating Shamshat Abdullayev,
Mm-hmm.
who was actually pretty close to Dragomoshenko, but I love Shamshat. We were very close friends, and I published him a lot, and all this, and you know his work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, yeah.
I think that that it might be a very good project for you.
Thank
I
you.
just feel it.
No, thank you for that.
The way you work with language.
No, thank you for that recommendation, yeah.
Yes, please.
I have a question for Tanya. Tanya, when you first introduced your 3 poems from Разложение, 1, 2, 3, where did you get the idea, and how is it connected to hands? Like washing hands, there is someone writing on a hand. What's the connection there?
Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's a hard question. I think I first had an idea of a different poetry project, and I started recording these videos and images, and I was also taking pictures, like screenshots of this, the Google Earth places. But then it just didn't work out, and then I also, at some point I started writing this poetry cycle, and then I realized it just works together. But this is all, of course, connected to memory, materials. The hand was, I actually want to work a bit more technically on this, the first poem, because you can see that something is written and the poem is written in the hand, so I'm kind of washing it out. Yeah, it's all about like memory and surfaces, materials, and but initially I wasn't planning to include the visual part. It just
No,
I
it
realized-
works beautiful together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Speaking of the visual part, I was curious why you all chose to present with the screen, because I've heard some of you, Inna, Venya, present without the words displayed or images, and it was a different experience.
I don't know.
Or
Like I have feedback for both, that like sometimes people say that they would also want to see the text along with the pronouncing. I personally, I guess, choose more for not having a presentation, but today, like with this frame, I thought this is a better solution.
For me the same, plus I didn't know who would be like Russian native speakers, and I thought at least seeing the text would be more important, but I also had this visual poetry cycle, so it doesn't make sense to not show it.
Yeah, I included visuals mostly because Tanya was including visuals. So to continue the inspiration, but also I think that Darshri's poetry does have a visual component as well with like the typographical stuff, and I also just wanted to show the original because I don't know if there are any Russian speakers in the room that could read it, just to like show people, yeah, this is what it's like. This is what the experience of the text is like.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's not a question, but simply to tell you that I have seen in your book that you just purchased here. You have a QR here, which is very rare, I think, in books, because this indicates that there is a playlist on Central, and there is стихи голосом авторки. So it's very, very interesting. It's innovative in a way. It's your innovation. It's.
I mean, I don't think I'm the first one, but yeah, for me it's important. Actually, that's also the way how I finish my book. I record all the poems, I edit them, and some of them I know by heart by that time.
But it's a very interesting technique.
Yeah, so you can kind of have both. Yeah.
It's better than a CD, I think.
Huh?
People used to know the CD even in the 90s.
It's better than CD because it's automatically on your telephone, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Venya, I was wondering, have you actually finished the Georgi collection for World Poetry?
Yeah. But we're, what's it called? I have to submit a completed manuscript probably by the end of the year. But yeah, we have a full draft.
I know you've had a very busy year. Do you have to put it very mildly, do you have another project in mind? Translation?
Well, I mean, now I've heard a great suggestion from the audience, but not anything at the moment. Well, I also want to finish Danya's Bolshevik poem. That's definitely a top priority, and it's been really wonderful to return to that after the busy year that I've had.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for all three poets about the relationship between theory and poetry. And the three of you are scholars and clearly are working with, theoretical texts that explore various ideas of, language and meaning and subjectivity and so forth. And so, to what extent do you allow theory and poetry to interpenetrate? How much of the poetry sort of arises in the margins of theory, and to what extent does the poetry then overtake the theory and become its own thing, or maybe reflection of or on theory? Or does poetry begin, I guess, where theory breaks down or something like that? Or what's basically your, I guess, creative process when it comes to thinking about the mutually inspiring or reflecting relationship between those two fields?
I'm not a scholar.
Sorry. It's theoretical though, so.
Okay, yeah, it's a very good question, and I think it's a good topic for a dissertation, like poets and theory. So I think it depends on a poem, but of course it's now inseparable. And for example, this Bolshevik poem is also kind of like, it's, I call it исследовательская poem, like a research poem, because it's also my research. And if you go to this QR code, click on this link, you will see that at the end of this poem I even have references, but they're also done poetically. So yes, for me it's I can't draw this line even between the theory and poetry. So poetry can also, I think, produce some theoretical knowledge, and it's even a topic of my dissertation partly. So yeah, but I encourage you to develop this in your scholarly work.
Okay, so I'll give like two answers. One answer is that I agree with Tanya that this is Definitely an interesting part of research. And, you know, the second book project that I have written in every single cover letter is about the Russophone academic avant-garde. That's like the second book project I've been pitching to places. You know, looking not necessarily just at poetry, but like interactions between like literary discourse and theoretical discourse, from like Shklovsky's Tso to like, you know, Darji, and you know, the search for a decolonized Russian language, Russian poetic language, which I think is one of the things that contemporary Russophone poets are talking about. The second answer that I'll give is that, you know, because of the death of the author, anything that I say as a poet, like, doesn't really matter. It's just text that you should interpret. I am not the best authority on my texts. I think, like, anyone here is a much better authority on my text than I am. Don't take anything that I say at face value. I'm here to trick you. But at the same time, you know, it happens that the biographical poet has been a graduate student, and, you know, this is what's at hand. Theory is what is at hand. So, even though I'm trying to trick you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. This is such a privilege to hear you all read your poetry. And I wonder though, because there's such a strong sort of translingual or translational component to a lot of what you're doing, right? We've had the privilege of hearing it, but what are people to do? How should people read it to themselves? How are people to read things? How are people to hear things that they don't know what they mean or how they sound, right? How do you sort of envisage people reading it off the page that don't have the access to the sound that we do? Like, what's the relationship between sound and written text in translingual poetry, I guess is the question, really.
Well, for my English language book, I include for like German and Russian fragments, I include translations on the side. Yeah, that's kind of a help, but of course it doesn't. You would still benefit from knowing all the languages I use. I think that translingual poetry is just you just have to accept that you won't be able to understand everything, and that the sound is an important component to it, and the visual also. Sometimes even how the words look on a page is important, and something that can draw you in. And for other kinds of poetry, so far, like I have a project to publish in Germany the 3-language book, where I wouldn't include any translations. So yeah, that's a challenge.
I think Inna covered many of my thoughts on this as well. I think, reading it out loud in general is I think that's kind of my basic advice to anyone that doesn't get a poem. Try reading it out loud. That I think like unlocks quite a bit. I don't know. My father has this problem. He frequently doesn't understand my poetry. And is like upset that he doesn't understand my poetry, and writes to my mom and asks her, what does this text mean? And I kind of just want to tell him, like, read it out loud. Like, maybe some things will clear up for yourself. But yeah.
That's a good answer. I support it. So it also, for me, depends on the text. I have one long poem which is impossible to read out loud because it has too many visual elements. But mostly I agree with what Inna and Venya said, because it's almost the same for me.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you to Lisa for emceeing the event.
much.